So, wonderful. It seems to work. I'm very astounded. There is a stream and it is working because usually there is always this effect of like if you go online and do a live show, you never know if anyone is listening out there. It's almost like in a seance, when you're talking to ghosts. Is anyone out there? Can you hear me? Make a
You're here.
knock, make a knock. Are you there? It seems you are there. And you're not
I'm
even
here,
frightened.
Johnny. Living.
There's no ghost, no ghost.
No ghost.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It
Good.
is so wonderful to see you. It is wonderful that it works out, even only in a virtual way. It would be way better
Yeah,
to have
of
you over in
course.
Europe. But
Mhm.
what can we do? So for all the people out there, just like a brief introduction. So first of all, welcome to the live stream of the B3 Biennial for the Moving Image. So who am
Hello.
I? Whose face is this? My name is Johannes Grenzfurthner, which is a very long and very Austrian and very complicated name. Doesn't matter. So I'm an artist, filmmaker. I've done like a metric shit ton of weird things over the last 30 years. I founded uh,
Nice.
a collective called Monochrome, doing lots of art and activist stuff. I've done documentaries, feature films, working on a couple of new ones right now, also during COVID times. And yeah, I like, for example, just like one example. So I've been doing a conference series about sex and technology called Ars Electronica, where we talk about sex and technology. And just recently, I became the editor in chief of a new magazine called The Free Lunch,
Oh, I love that.
which,
Please send that to me. Send me a
yeah,
copy of
I'll,
that.
I'll I'll definitely do that. I thought you would
That looks
like that. That's why I chose it because
I
of
do. I do like that.
the
That's beautiful.
quagmire that the United States is currently experiencing, and you are experiencing, which is
Yes, we are.
partially also
We're
the
live.
reason why you were not over in Europe, I guess. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
like
but
just kidnap me and take me to Europe. Take my family to Europe. Take us all. Take us.
well, yeah, we
We'll go.
take you like on like asylum, like perfect asylum
Yeah.
seekers. Yes. No, it's
Yeah.
really true. Like the United States over the last couple of years kind of like deteriorated into like a third world country. It's so
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
to see.
It's especially
Incredible.
living in Los Angeles for so many yees too. I mean, LA is like crazy now. So it definitely there's been so many changes that it does feel a little third world. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for all the people who don't know who you are or who have experienced your films before, just like a brief introduction. So you can see Adam C. Rehmeyer, which is also a really nice German name, I have to add. How do
Right.
you pronounce it in American?
Raymeyer.
Rehmeyer or
Yeah. Yeah. Raymeyer.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rehmeyer. Okay, cool. And so Adam worked in Hollywood as a DP and editor and documentarian for a long time,
Yeah.
and like he jumped into the writer director auteur uh, uh, like concept with his award-winning debut, The Bunny Game, and that was screened at 40 film festivals all around the world. And I mean, there are so many things to talk to you about. I've like probably 45 minutes won't be enough, but I mean, the main reason why you are here, of course, is because we are screening your new film at the B3. Just tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about it. I never know how to do it because I'm a filmmaker myself and I don't want
I
to
don't know
give
how
you
to
too
do it.
many
Yeah.
spoilers
Exactly.
about that stuff. But yeah, like should we like give away all all the fun stuff, or should we just like keep most of it a secret? I don't even know, but it's dinner in America, and
Yeah.
it's a romp. I enjoyed it very much. I watched it on the weekend. I liked it tremendously. Also, me being someone, I mean, I was 15 in 1990, so I grew up with the, like
Yes.
the 90s aesthetics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're referring to. Although it's kind of like you never know. Is it the 90s? Is it not? It is a little bit ambivalent, the whole thing. So maybe
Yes,
you can talk
it is.
about that a little bit. Yeah.
It is ambivalent because it's almost its own little time period. It's its own little bubble. So it was designed that way, and it doesn't really obey all of the rules of it's not a 90s film, it's not a contemporary film, it's a weird, hybrid, I guess, if you will. You'll notice that no one speaks on cell phones. So it's my movie. If I don't want them speaking on cell phones, they're not going to speak on cell phones. I'm tired of seeing that. I'm tired of people texting messages and seeing stuff like that. So it was fun to have kind of a contemporary film, but have kind of this nod to the past integrated into it. But yeah, it is contemporary. They do mention cell phones, but we do not see them. So
Yeah, I mean, I like that a lot because in the meantime, you really always have to find an excuse why the cell phones are not working or why they are not here or something. Because,
right, right,
like, because every single major, like, let's say, horror film plot
yeah,
can be completely destroyed by the
right,
possibility to just communicate with someone out there. And you have to just like stop that. So there's always this like
yeah,
moment when you see like, now they are getting rid of the cell phones
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
it is
yeah.
like
There's
this
always that
plot
moment. Yeah,
device. Yeah, and I always find that cool when they do that in the right way, when they find a good plot element
yeah,
to explain the cell phones away. And of course it's way better when the horror still works, or when the dynamics still work even if there are cell phones around, but whatever. But in your case we don't need cell phones, but we need a lot of tapes, a lot of cassette tapes.
a lot of tapes. Yeah, we need a lot of tapes, and I hope people are nostalgic about tapes. I miss tapes. I still use tapes, so whatever. Yeah, no, I think. Also, I miss the sound of rotary phones. I love the sound of the rotary phone, and yeah, it's great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love the sound. So it's
I,
cool to have that in this film.
yeah. Cool. Yeah. By the way, just because I mentioned, because one of my projects is this conference about sex and technology, and there is always this like relationship between sex and technology, how sex shapes tech, or tech shapes sex. And the reason why the rotary phone, like the pulse dial system, was pretty much eradicated 10 years before it was necessary, because most people were totally fine in the 1980s with rotary phones and analog switching boards. But so many people, especially male people, were interested in getting their hands on sex hotlines. And sex hotlines only worked in the digital phone systems. So you needed
Yeah,
digital switchboards. So many consumers said like, well, I want access to sex hotlines. So can you please switch to the digital phone system right now? So they had to do it 10 years earlier, although the rest of the people didn't need it. So anyhow, like, doesn't matter.
crazy.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. But just like let's go back to your film. So are you like, so the reason why you chose that your protagonists are punksters, was
Hmm.
that like something like, for example, would the whole thing work if they would be techno people as well, or there's just something inherent in the grindiness, or like the griminess of the punk genre?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that they're sort of fringe punk, rockers too, to a degree. I mean, I think Simon's the authentic, purist punk rocker kid, kind of, but Patty's more an outlier, and she's her own girl. So I think it's about that spirit of punk rock more than it is about an aesthetic design. And I think what's cool about sort of the punk rock vibe of the movie is that it's offset with this very electronic drum machine driven soundtrack. So it does the punk thing, but it's also there's a nice with the score that just breaks it up a little bit. Like I've always said, the worst thing that we could have done with this movie would to put like some kind of punk rock soundtrack running through the entirety of it. I think it would be just a really bad call. So we're very selective in this film in when we utilize it, and we go through the whole movie without seeing Simon perform until the very end,
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's
you know,
true. Yeah.
also with, and there's like really not any. There's obviously the music that Patty listens to, but there's not a lot of punk music throughout. But it's a very punk rock movie. It has more to do with the spirit, I think, of the characters than anything else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been interesting to see that in recent years there has been kind of like a resurgence of punk in films. There was this what was it? This like thriller called, I think, like the Green Room,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Do you think is this part of like a form of kind of like new form of like the interesting thing about punk is that it was already retro like a year.
Totally. Yeah,
It was already retro in 1978. So when punk
it was
started in the
correct.
mid 70s, it was
Right.
already like it was its own revolution and killed
Right.
itself. And everything
Right.
after that is retro.
In
So,
it.
but it's kind of like it's the I don't know like fifth iteration of being
Yeah.
retro.
Right. No, I think what people identify most with is that spirit of it. So it's yes, punk is dead by 77, 78, and then it's fashion, and it recycles, and every couple of years there's a new group of bands or this or that that are the punk rock bands of the time, I guess, if you will. But I'm off track here, but that's like the main thing for me is like just the spirit and sort of punk rock energy is sustained, and while it's not over the top claiming to be punk rock, it kind of is by proxy. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, what punk really created, or the revolution of punk was DIY. That you just like
yeah,
you don't
correct,
know how to play an instrument, you just do it.
correct,
There is like
correct.
a I don't know like an 8 millimeter Super 8 camera sitting around that the parents bought for recording Christmas party, but nobody uses it. Ah, let's
Yeah,
take the camera and make a film
yeah.
with it. That kind of like attitude.
And that attitude is the attitude that I've adhered to with this. It's about creation and less about fashion. So it's that DIY spirit that you were talking about that permeates this film and moves, that's the real spirit that we're talking about here is, having a 4-track recorder and recording in your basement and making music and, not having limitations or thinking that you need to be in a professional recording studio to make a song or, all of those kind of traps. So it does, again, it's the DIY spirit, it's the punk rock spirit, and that's, I think, what's different about this film a little bit is it's not trying to frame it as this overly punk, experience.
Yeah,
So, but it,
because I mean, if you would make a real punk film, it wouldn't look like the film that
yeah,
you made. Because I mean, I'm not even sure it's possible to really create a working punk film because it would be probably almost unwatchable. I don't know. I
yeah,
never tried it before, but yeah, but the process of filmmaking is a very meticulous, very precise process. So
yeah.
you're conveying the punk energy, but
Mhm.
it's not made in a punk way. Yeah.
And some of the energy and the truths of that and the truths of punk and the truths of that spirit, that's Emily and Kyle. That's what, moment to moment, those decisions that they're making, as cast, that's where this lives. I mean, you're either on board with them and identify with their relationship, or you're not. So it could be polarizing, I suppose. But I feel like the film has a lot of heart, and that seems to be what people gravitate towards with it. Is that it's becomes a unique love story that they didn't see coming, just as it goes along.
Yeah. I mean, there is this old, like the save the cat tricks that you use in like screenwriting. So like how do you make protagonists like how do you declare who is a protagonist, and then you do like narrative and psychological tricks so people root for a character or something like that. And for me the moment was clearly I like that guy is when you're made, and I'm hopefully not spoiling too much, but when one of your protagonists just like puts gasoline in front of the house like within the last first 5 minutes or something like that. I don't know. And just yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
guy. I like that guy. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will think like, what kind of psychopath is that? But for me, yes, please more. And for me, I was sold already at that point.
Well, good. That's early in the film. That's early enough in the film that hopefully we saved it for you. And regarding the cat, we didn't save the cat. We did a centerpiece with the cat. We did not save the cat. The cat's quite dead. So
Oh yeah, your cat is dead. Yes, absolutely. Your cat is very dead.
no, I know. I know what you're talking about, though. The save the cat thing. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. In general, but that's a good question. In general, like how did you approach the creation of the film content-wise? Like not even like starting very early on. So, what was your first? What was the first thing you scribbled down on a napkin that then became that film? So, what is the very early genesis of it?
The very, very early genesis is the rhythm of this film. Did you feel that rhythm, that undulating
Oh
rhythm of the
yes, yeah,
film?
sure.
Yeah, the very first genesis of this project was the Simon character, and I was visiting my parents in the Midwest, and it was winter time. It was around Christmas, and it had snowed, and uh, the trucks had come through, the snow plows, and when they're done plowing, they shoot out sand and salt. And I was taking a walk, and it's very quiet. When it snows, I love how quiet it is. You can really hear. It's like that kind of deafening silence,
Yeah, yeah,
and you're
like
walking through.
it's
Yeah,
dampening, yeah, because it's
yeah,
isolating the environment. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it was the sound of my boots walking in the sand and creating this kind of this rhythm, this beat that I had, this cadence, and I got several flashes of Simon, how he
Mhm.
moved, uh, some kind of energy stuff with him, and I went back and sketched it right away, just from a walk. So I was walking along. I heard there was a rhythm to the footsteps that I was making and the speed that I was walking at, and it formed a rhythm for a character. And I had an idea, so I went, ran home, and I jotted down the character, and I wrote everything. I had this idea like about this punk kid that was selling his body to science to pay for his recordings. And I went and I jotted that down, and it just sat. The idea sat for many years. That this is like 2006 that I wrote down the idea for this character. And then for many years it just sat and it didn't do anything. And I would periodically visit it and try to, bring some life into it. But I find that sometimes I have to do a project all at once, or I get lost and I'm not really sure what I want to do with it anymore. So this is one of those projects that sat for many, many years. And then I was doing some sketching a few years later, and just some free writing, some just like when I have writer's block, that type of thing, where I'm just putting stuff on a page just to put it on a page. And I started sketching this sort of the American nuclear family, Patty, her brother, mom and dad around the dinner table. It was just some character sketch stuff. It was just some dialogue exercises, basically. But it's weird because the whole mom, what's cumin, all of that first conversation with the family was I put everything that I had into the actual script. So it kind of came from that, organic place where you think of something and just write it down. So some of those early parts of it are in the Patty side of things as well. But what happened was, this is maybe 2013. So 6 or 7 years had elapsed since I had the idea about Simon. And I had this idea, the Patty story, which was called Dinner in America. Nothing was working until I brought that character from the other project. I brought the Simon character into Dinner in America. And I thought, wouldn't this be cool if this guy came and disturbed life in this little family and changed everybody and then got out? Like, what would that look like? And then, so I started riffing on that. And that was really combining the two ideas together is what, you know, made the film what it is.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. So did you, because you talked about like all of it started as a rhythm, did you try to keep the rhythm in the editing process as well? Is
Well,
there,
I well, yes, eventually. At first I had to establish what the rules of the film were going to be in the edit. So I did my first pass, which was like 2 hours and 19 minutes long. And that was just everything that I had shot from the script assembled out full. So the first thing that I did with once I had done that, I had determined pretty early on that Patty and Simon weren't meeting each other quickly enough for an audience. Like, unless you want another 20 minutes before they meet, you know, which it was exhausting. The front end, I think with most feature films, the problem was always the first act, almost all, especially with independent films, you know. So I needed to hone the front end of the film and squeeze it, compress it, to make it work. And part of that was then working with the composer, John Swihart, who had been sending me stuff. The biggest problem of the film was like the first 10 minutes. I wanted, it was like 20 minutes instead of like, 10. And I needed to lose 10 right away. And the way that I did that was started working with John Swihart, the composer, and he started sending me tracks, and we were like, let's just figure out the first 10 minutes of the movie. We did that, and I was able to like compress everything down because of the soundtrack. The soundtrack was like the connective tissue that was writing, kind of an ebb and flow through those first sequences. So that's what helped us compress the front end. And, after that, it was a lot easier to get a gauge on how the film, what the parameters were going to be with this sort of electronic, EDM style, big drums and distorted drum machine beats and all of this stuff. And, really we don't have a melodic score. It's very rhythmical without melody. So we're never holding the audience's hand to say, right now I need you to feel this. I'm going to use strings and you're going to feel this. It's more a rhythmical, mechanical, process in this film. So there's like 68 or 69 score cues. So it's front to back. There's a lot going on rhythmically in this film.
You did a really great job, or I mean, I didn't pay attention close enough, but who did your casting, or how did you then? Because it seems that your male protagonist is so important, and it all started with him, and like the glimpses of walking in the snow. That like, how did you realize that's the person I want to cast for that character? How did that
Well,
happen?
Kyle Gallner was on he was one of like 5 actors on my original list that I wanted for this film. And I had an in through one of the producers that I was working with. Kyle had auditioned for a film for them a year or so before, and he didn't get the role. He wasn't right for the role, but he's a great guy, and they had his email address. So they sent him Dinner in America on my behalf, and he didn't read it. He didn't read it, and he was on a big TV show at the time. He didn't read it. In the meantime, we went out to other people. We had a couple different configurations of the film, both of which fell apart. And then as time elapsed, my cinematographer was working in Romania on a film with Kyle. And he told him, hey, I'm going to do this movie when I get back to the US. It's great. They're looking for the lead. You got to read it. You got to check it out. And he was like, what's it called? And JP was like, it's Dinner in America. And he's like, God, I think I have that script. And he went back in his email from 3 years prior and found the script and read it that night and wanted to do it. So yeah, we made it happen. It's crazy.
Wow. So who was like the first person to be kind of like fixed, like
Kyle.
the male or the female lead?
Kyle was the first. Simon. And
Yeah.
I was never going to cast. I was never going to cast Patty before Simon. Always had to have Simon first
Okay.
because I didn't want to lock myself in. It was so important for me to have Patty have to like look up to Simon a little bit, not the other way down. So I couldn't have a taller Patty than Simon. It just didn't make sense. I needed him to be slightly taller than her at the very least. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if I could have had Joey Ramone and it was like way tall, then sure, she'd really be looking up. But I needed a taller Simon and I needed to lock Simon first for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like even all the side characters, the supporting actors, they're all so great. And I didn't read like the IMDb entry or anything. I just like watched the film, and I had my Howard the Duck moment when I thought like, is this Leah Thompson? And
Yeah,
and it's her.
yeah,
And
it's her.
how do you know her?
She came through, I think, our casting director, Susan Paley Abramson and Justine Hempy. I think they had reached out to Leah, and I got a chance to speak with her, and we gelled, and it just worked, and she came out for a few days. And I love Leah. She's awesome, and she's just been super supportive. She's a director as well, so we have a lot in common, like just like language wise, and I mean, she's been in the business for a long time. Obviously, I grew up on Jaws 3 and Back to the Future, so I was excited to get the opportunity to work with her.
Yeah, that's so great. I don't even know what to ask more because I really don't want to spoil and people should really watch the movie. So maybe on a darker note, how did the whole release of the film work? Because we're sitting in a big quagmire at the moment. There, it's called
Well,
COVID or COVID response or something like that, and it's a 2020 movie. And whenever you have the
yeah.
2020 after a movie, you think like, how did that work? So
Well,
how did it work?
Well, it hasn't been fully resolved. Like we're still working territory to territory and things. So it has been slowed by COVID, but I'm hopeful in the next month or so we'll have some type of announcement where things are positive and making a positive out of this shit of a year. Because I would love to be in Frankfurt right now. I would, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really had to cancel probably 25 or 20 or 25 gigs like on your side of the ocean. So this year, so it's just like, and of course
Yeah,
that's the financial stuff because I mean, uh,
yeah,
in Europe, at least I can say we have something like a working social system and an art funding system. So I got some like art
yeah.
and filmmaker support grants this year, but of course in the US that doesn't exist. So
No.
how is it working? How is it working with you and your friends? Uh,
Extremely difficult right now. Extremely difficult. You know, this semi composure here. There's a lot of strain. It's work has evaporated. Of course, it's exacerbated by people that don't want to play by the rules, that don't want to wear a mask and do very simple things to protect people. So I personally don't fucking understand it at all. But I don't understand why people feel this way. So I wear a mask for other people. I do it for them and myself, obviously. But I have a family, and it makes sense. We've gone on so long in the U.S. It's a total shit show. It's absolute shit show right now. So we've got elections. We'll see what happens. I don't
yeah,
know.
I hope.
So,
I mean, I hope something will happen in a month or so, like in less
I,
than a month actually. Oh my God.
yeah, Mhm.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's
We'll see. Oh my. May I ask?
Yeah, we will see. No, I said
Yeah,
will see. It is less than a month, so we'll see. But I mean, I would hope that at some point there's a return to common sense and that people would start behaving appropriately. But it is America, so that maybe you're wishing for too much. But I don't know. It's tough.
it's quite weird, yeah. But maybe that's an interesting question for you, or maybe you have like thought about that because what I've been thinking about pretty much like since Trump came to power, and also just like in general, like analyzing or trying to analyze popular culture or what culture is doing right now, it's so interesting that a person like Trump can sell himself as an underdog, as like an anti-establishment character, although he is like a millionaire and he's the head of the free world, and he's
Yeah.
still talking about himself as an underdog. And in general, also the people who are fighting masks, the people, all this like like QAnon bullshit, all like the conspiracy people out there, they're all using this gesture of underdogness. They're using the gesture of they are in a certain way they are playing punk. They are
Yeah.
trying to revolt a system that actually doesn't exist. They think they are being oppressed by something and fighting that and running the punk attitude against nothing. It is completely evaporating, but they just don't get it. I mean, how do you
I would
see
say
that
it
as
worked.
someone who
Well,
understands punk?
I would say that it worked. It worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesus Christ,
It worked.
it's
It
yeah. So
worked.
you have
That,
you
I don't
suddenly
know.
have.
I have to witness it every time I go out. I have to witness it every time I go out. So I would say that it worked. It worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I hope it will at some time, like there will be this moment of like when the US will finally be able to take a breath again, like in the most literal sense, just like
It would be really
because
nice.
the media cycle, the hype cycle, the populism cycle, everything is so fast, and everyone I
Mhm.
know just wants to rest. And of course, even if you're locked at home and sitting on your couch all day, you cannot rest. It's just excruciating. Yeah.
It, it is very excruciating. That is a great way to put it. Just excruciating. I mean, and to just yeah, it's a daily shit show that you just want to be gone. You want it off. That's what I want. I want people to come to their senses. But that, honestly, it's probably wishful thinking at this point. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Do you think there will be something positive coming out of that? Like the catharsis, so to speak?
I could only hope so. I don't know for with some of the people the way that they think. I don't know what happens when their bubble bursts and they realize that it was just a bunch of hot wind and that they're I don't know. I don't know what happens to those people when they wake up. I don't know. I don't know if they ever wake up. They probably don't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, is there anything? Of course, I mean, this is a strange time because what you
Yeah.
should do now is like traveling around and going to film festivals and getting standing ovations, hopefully, or whatever. Yeah, but now you're locked away, and it's such a misery. It's so bad. But hopefully, it will turn out that at some point you will be able to travel again or be able to go on the tour. Is there anything like, are you in a certain way trying to plan for the next year or something like that for
Well,
new projects or I don't know.
let's get through November. Let's see what
Hmm.
November looks like. That's going to probably determine a lot of things with just you know how things whether it expedites getting we really have to get through the pandemic first and so you know like I said, wishful thinking with with the response it's been very mixed. um, do I long for being back on the circuit with this film? Absolutely, because I love watching this film with an audience. I love seeing that. So that's a great thing, and it's a really important thing for a filmmaker to have the downtime with a project and to have kind of the cleanse from it as you transition into the next thing. So it's, this is supposed to be that time. I think, what I'm thinking is that a lot of festivals will probably festivals that didn't actually play next year. We've had a few festivals that say we are going to play your film. We're gonna aim for doing it next, spring or whatever, and your film will be a part of that. So there's hope there that we'll have some live screenings. But I think this is a film that I think outside of it, even I can set up screenings for it, and even if it's 3 years from now, people will still come, because I think it has a positive message and a positive effect with people. And I think it plays more grindhouse adjacent. That's why we're doing a lot of heavy genre festivals with it too, because it's not a typical rom-com or something like that. It plays like a romantic comedy for people who love genre film. And so that is one kind of unique space that this film lives in that maybe other films don't. But I'm a big genre fan, so it's my love of that type of cinema. This is like kind of the version of a rom-com that somebody like that would make. So
Yeah. I would never see it as a rom-com, by the way. It is, yeah, it's like, I mean, there's
I
a
don't know
vibe.
how to phrase it. I mean, a love story. How about that? Just a love
Love
story.
story, yes, absolutely,
Right.
yeah, that of course. But good question. So, are there any what films or what styles, let's say, have influenced you in creating that film? Are there any directors or any writers that have been kind of like influential for it?
No, I mean the more influential than anything for me was just like growing up playing punk rock music and recording, like just my love of four tracking, as a teenager, and then later in my 20s and 30s, and I still dabble with the recording. I recorded the song in the basement. That was Emily and I recorded that song together. We performed that, and then Kyle and her did it in the movie. But Emily and I wrote the song that they'd perform in the basement, and we recorded it together. So I just, for me, it was a way to apply. This film was a way for me to take something that's very special to me, which is recording and music, and to frame a story around it, so that could be the centerpiece moment of the film. I'm just drawing off of things that I really love, like personally love. Not,
Yeah, yeah,
I wasn't
beautiful.
pulling, yeah, I wasn't pulling from different films and stuff like that. It was more an internal type of pulling from having a love for home recording and four tracking, and what does that look like as an element in a film, and then kind of build. And then also too having these four dinners in the movie that were kind of the anchor points for the whole film. So just having a framework and a theme with how we eat in America,
Yeah.
and to
And it's
that,
like
and then
it's like a deja vu. It's a deja vu in the film, but it's always a little bit different. It's
right,
yeah, yeah.
right,
No, it's but we talked about the rhythm of the film already. So
right,
it's a very rhythmical film. So I completely get that.
yeah,
Yeah. So what I always like to ask filmmakers, because what filmmaking for me is more than most other or any other art forms, is that it's creative problem solving.
oh
It's
yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah,
absolutely. And then you realize when you shoot something and you cannot reshoot, and then you find out in the editing, oh fuck, that doesn't work. And so, like, of course, the more budget you have, the better it's, of course, because the more you can
yeah.
plan it. But if you're doing very indie productions, then you have to be super creative how to save something. So what was your, let's say, your moment of like, what the fuck, what have I done, how can I fix this? Was there something in the film, in the process of making it?
Yeah, we had a very elaborate sequence at a nightclub where there's dancing and shit, and Simon goes and he parties, and he's like, he's all like doing a bunch of coke and partying and stuff, and we shot this elaborate dance sequence with the actors wore the body mounts for the camera, and it was like the
Oh,
doggy cameras and stuff, and it was
yeah.
it was wild. But while it was a fun sequence, it was that I needed to squeeze down to fit in here, and I literally made on my timeline. I made markers like this is all the time I have right here, you know. So uh, it comes down to knowing how much you can push and what, you know, kind of anticipating what an audience will go along with and what they won't go along with. Obviously, that doesn't dictate when I'm creating things and making it, but they're having an awareness and not having a movie that's bloated in an area, like it still has to have flow. So those hard decisions, sometimes you're like, well, this sequence looks really great, but it slows the film down, and you have to balance it out. So, you know, there's always stuff that there's work that you can do. Usually in the script, I was lucky enough to have producers that let me shoot everything out the way that I had envisioned it, and you know, and then I was able to compress that in post production. So that was a bit of a luxury. If I could go back in time, I would cut 10 pages out of the script, and then obviously have more time to work like on my scene in the basement, which I had only a day for, you know, to do everything that happened in that basement. So I'd take an extra half day or an extra day for that alone if I could have it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah. I think that's one of the most important things to learn, I guess, as a filmmaker is you have to kill your babies at some point. You just have to. It's just like
you have
it's
to,
better for the film.
you know,
Yeah.
it was Truffaut that said there's three films really: the film that you write, the film that you shoot, and the film that you edit, and they're all different films. And that's so true. That's always been my, you know, the what I focus on the most is you have this script that you've written, and you just can't be precious with the words. You can't be precious with anything on it, because you know everything's expendable. Everything's expendable for that final thing. So the second you cast the film, the idea that you might have had in your head is not, once you bring those actors in, it's their own energy, and now they've come into the mix, and you have to go with it. You have to trust the decisions you've made for casting, because I really feel that casting is like 95% of the work. It really is. It comes down to that, and their energy and their attitude, how they're going to work with you. And then from that point on, it's a collaborative process of these words that you've put on a page that they're channeling and interpreting. And then you get that on the day, you shoot that on the day, and you're bound to that, what you've done. So then it's your job as the editor, well, in my case, because I edited the film, but you know, sifting through everything to make the most cohesive version of the story, or do all the hard work. All the, you know, you have all the control really happens, you know, in post, with as far as the rhythm and the timing of everything. So you know, that part is the part that where everything really comes together and you can really see it. But they're all different films. My point is that the thing that you write, the thing that you shoot, and the thing that you cut, they're all totally different films from each other. So they're
Yeah.
close, but they're different. You do have to kill your darlings, and you have to get it out of your head. As far as like, I think that's where I've seen more independent filmmakers, because I've been shooting forever and I've been, you know, working forever. I see more often than not people get hung up on this thing that they have a certain way, and they're willing to shoot and shoot and shoot to try to achieve it, but it just bogs everything down.
Yeah.
It's never going to be that thing, and it's kind of a waste of time. I'm much more like, get in, I get what I need, and I keep moving, because you know, with a film like Dinner in America, there's so many locations and so many actors. There's like, it's never stable. The only stable location is the house. Everything on this production was just boom, 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 you know, as we went down. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we're almost done. We have like a minute or so left. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation. It was great having you. Wonderful. In case you should ever need like a crazy Austrian, count me in.
Yeah.
We'll have a little role somewhere.
If you need a little brother, it might be me and my 4-pack of a family coming to live with you. So
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have a spare bedroom. It's totally fine.
okay,
You can
we'll
come
just
over.
we're
Okay.
gonna
The problem is
see
they
about
won't let you
Lego.
in, I guess. Yeah. Now my parents are trying to get to the US because we have a vacation home there, and they have to go to Mexico first for 2 weeks, and then they can go to the States or something. I don't even know. You can't
Oh,
make that shit up. It's really just like it's beyond. Anyhow, so thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. You're based in on the West Coast, so it's kind of early for you.
no, I'm actually in the Midwest. I'm in outside of Detroit, so in
You're outside
Detroit
of
right now.
Detroit. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
We
so
stayed.
yeah,
We stayed.
you stayed. Great. You stayed
Yeah,
even after RoboCop. Yeah. So it's
even after RoboCop. Sorry about RoboCop, right?
yeah. RoboCop is one of my favorite films of the '80s, and it was just like
Oh, no, they're
everything
Hogan.
became
Yeah,
true.
not really.
Everything is
Yeah,
it's
they're Hogan one,
just
sure.
incredible. So, well, what can I say? Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your quarantine, and I hope that many people here at the B3 Biennial will enjoy your movie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right. Have a great